Absolutely. So 93% believe that it's going to go up.
No, 93% think it's going to go down. In other words, the public is either neutral to bearish. And by the way, God has been right for the past 10 years about what the price of gold was going to do. Yet if you go look at the records of the Wall Street firms, they've been neutral to bearish, almost every one of them, all the way up. I can't imagine any other sector or market where Wall Street could be so wrong. And they're still that way today. Because
again, to put that in layman's terms, in layman's
terms, it means that there's nobody bullish, and when markets top out, it's when everyone's bullish and there's too much excitement and enthusiasm. There's almost no enthusiasm about gold now.
Exactly, but the point is they're always saying, because they're paid to and they're always wrong, that it's going to go down and that it's a bad investment.
That's right.
But the people are ignoring them and they're losing all credibility. Stay there. Let's talk about this whistleblower story when we get back.
And it burns, burns, burns.
Bill Murphy, the head of GATA, reveals whistleblower and gold price suppression is the YouTube video. They cut the TV feed when he testified, and they wouldn't let Andrew Maguire, the independent metals trader turned whistleblower at the center of a storm, for exposing what is the largest fraud in history. Max Kaiser, a year before they took down Iceland, was in the Capitol, in the fanciest hotel, in the bar, and there were Goldman Sachs people bragging about what they were planning to do there. And so he went out on TV about it, and, of course, then later it happened. But let's talk about this whistleblower himself. I mean, from your own research, you can confirm, but now you've gotten the emails. And I remember for 10 years, different whistleblowers went to the different federal regulatory agencies with dossiers showing exactly how Madoff was stealing 50 to 100, depending how you look at it, $1 billion, and they would never do anything about that. So please continue.
Yeah, well, we compare ourselves to Harry Markopolos, who went to the SEC for 10 years and said, look at this. It's a fraud. We've been going to the CFTC for 10 years saying, look at this, it's a fraud. I met with the Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, the Senate Banking Committee, the Joint Economic Committee. We went to President Bush's good friends here in Texas, boyhood friends. I got a fax back from Lawrence Lindsay, his economic advisor at the time. So we've really gone after this thing, and we really got a break here with this Andrew Maguire because ironically, he's a former Goldman Sachs trader. And it's another bar story. What happened was he was out with these JPMorgan guys. He's known them for years. And they were laughing at him, and they probably had a little too much to drink, and were saying what they were doing in the gold market. And so he got mad, and he said, this is just wrong. And so that's when we got his information. He's been a member of my website, LaMetropoleCafe.com, for 3 or 4 years. I met him in London. He's a stand-up guy. He's a smart guy. He deals with Asian banks and in the bullion market, and he just came forth and just dropped this bombshell on the CFTC. So they're going to have a tough time letting this one go, because what do you explain to the public, especially if these gold and silver markets blow up like we think is going to occur?
Now, let's be specific. And I've talked to a lot of high-powered people from Wall Street that also live here in Austin part of the year, and we've discussed this case, and they say absolutely. When you go to these elite bars and you're an elite trader with one of the big firms and you're in a different division, they are so arrogant and brazen, all they talk about is how we're scum, fools, how they're going to take over everything.
That's right.
And they just constantly laugh and joke. And so because they know the government is run by their alumni. I mean, look at Goldman Sachs. They've got every major regulatory position filled.
Well, half the Treasury is Goldman. That's we call it Government Sachs, because half the people at the Treasury come from Goldman Sachs, just like JPMorgan is the Fed's bank.
But that's the issue, is people ought to start going into these bars, these elite bars, which better wear a $2,000 suit, and start just recording these guys. But again, he sent them emails.
Andrew sent emails to the CFTC, to their legal counsel, saying, here's what's going to happen and when. And he said, watch it. At certain days, they seem to attack around job reports, certain government auctions and option expiries and so on. And he said, this is exactly what they're going to do. And the last time, I think, at one point he mentioned it, I think the price went down like $30 or $40 per ounce. That's a lot. So these things, this is just a bombshell that's slowly working its way around, and it's like and festering. And It's given us the attention that we've earned after working on this stuff for over a decade. And by the way, we're not just idle and just talk about it. We're suing the Fed. It was very difficult today for me to listen to President Obama talk about transparency, derivatives, financial market reform, when he's allowing what's occurring in the gold and silver markets. So what we did, President Obama wants more transparency. We went to the Freedom of Information Act and asked them to tell us what the U.S. was doing in the gold swap area, just a gold transaction kind of thing. And they got back to us and said, no, they're exempt from telling us that they're secrets. And so we're suing them in federal court to try to get to the truth. It's the American people's gold, not theirs.
Well, I mean, come on. Obama passed the stimulus package that gave banks more power, and it retroactively let all the banks keep all their bonuses and run all their scams. And it's not just me saying this. I mean, I'm reading what the Texas Banking Association's saying, and their analysis is identical to mine, that this new regulatory framework at the G20 and the national level gives the select banks, JPMorgan, Chase, Goldman Sachs, and a handful of others, the power to take over all the healthy regional banks that aren't in derivatives, and sets up a value-added tax on all financial transactions that's paid to the coffers of the IMF and World Bank and then fenced directly in to the private central banks. I mean, this is so incredible, and it's being billed as getting the rich bankers. Stay there. Let's talk about how they manipulate gold on the other side and how we stop them. They railed against the crown. Another ragtag band.
They railed against the crown. Another ragtag band declaring independence.
Bill Murphy, the chairman and director of GATA, Gold Antitrust Action Committee, is our guest. Let's get back into more of what the whistleblower said, how we know the big banks and governments fix the price of gold and silver, the way they make profits out of this, how this is detrimental to the public, and how we support GATA and what you're doing, because clearly there's a fuse going to this keg of TNT that could blow this Ponzi scheme, this fraud, sky high, and really reveal all these crimes that have been committed. This is clearly illegal, but we want to make sure that fuse that's now burning burns faster, hotter, and doesn't. Sometimes you light a firecracker, it doesn't burn all the way. It stops, it sputters. So how do we ensure this is a touchdown for the good guys?
Well, shows like this are a big help, Alex, and we're trying to be as visible as possible, because once people look at it and really study the evidence, they go, good grief. And if I might say, on some of the subjects you were talking about, it's not just gold. There's a lot of people have talk about the plunge protection team, which is the working group in financial markets, which president, I think treasurer, head of the SEC, and head of the CFTC work to stabilize the markets. And there's something I've never heard one other person mention called the Counterparty Risk Management Group. And if any of your people are interested, they can do a Google, Counterparty Risk Management Group, and you'll see it's a group of the hedge funds and some of the big Wall Street firms, and you'll see their main mantra, it's head up by a lot of the Goldman Sachs people, is to create, quote, stability in the market. And they're behind the scenes working on the stock market. That's one reason we believe you've had this steady upgo, for it seems like forever. It never seems to correct and just goes up a little bit every day and so on. So it's pervasive in our markets in addition to gold and silver, which, by the way, they're tiny little markets for these people. Even if they lost money on this, would be like a loss leader for the government. If you think of the trillions now, when we talk in those numbers these days, what the government's doing, the little gold market is just this little barometer that they want to have diffused, and that's why they work it over in the physical market and the derivatives and tack at certain times and flush out the speculators, get people demoralized, and then it goes right back up again. Like you said earlier, like a beach ball, it's submerged. They can't keep it down. And we have a long way to go here, and we're working very hard at it. I talk about the gold market every day at LaMetropoleCafe.com, and people can sign up for a 2-week free trial. Then if they like it, it's a subscription. But the GATA site, they go to www.gata.org. It's a free site. Chris Powell puts out emails all the time. He just does a fantastic job alerting people what's going on so they can keep abreast of the situation. And, we know maybe we're going to get a break with the district court in our lawsuit against it to try to get information from the Fed. I know the Fed's petrified of the gold issue, which is why they're fighting Ron Paul and his bill to audit the Fed.
Yeah, because this isn't just a little bitty market. I mean, in the aggregate it is, but it could become the biggest market, and it would unseat all of their fraudulent paper. And now we've got Bloomberg and others reporting federal regulators are going in telling public and private pension funds, threatening them to invest people's savings in, quote, failed banks. And so this is all coming to a head right now, and this is so important to expose this situation.
Alex, I didn't mean, by the way, to diminish the gold and silver issue or the size of it, just in terms of, like, if you talk about market caps or anything like this, it's a tiny market, but it's actually the most important market for just what you're talking about. When that goes, it would be headlines all over the world, because gold and silver are not just American markets, they're world markets.